I understand everything that you said, but I'm asking you, there's a foreign leader who's saying that American law enforcement, including the National Guard, ought to crack down on Americans exercising their First Amendment right to free speech. I'm asking you on this particular issue, not on October 7th, not on all this that happened. I'm asking you, do you find this to be appalling by a foreign leader in direct interference in the way Americans conduct themselves?
A leader can call on whatever they'd like, Said, but it's no one is naive to the fact that utilization of the National Guard is ultimately a decision up to individual governors. And so beyond that, the Prime Minister is welcome to make whatever comments he'd like. When it comes to what is happening in this country, we're going to remain focused on that, and specifically on some of the spread of anti-Semitism that we're seeing. This is something that this president takes incredibly seriously, and that's why he has implemented the first ever national strategy to combat anti-Semitism. Other kinds of harmful, hurtful rhetoric that we have been seeing as well in the aftermath of October 7th, rooted in Islamophobia, rooted in stigmatism around Arab Americans or Palestinian Americans. That is also equally problematic and needs to be condemned as well.
Yes, no, hold it. Please, I'm not done. Hey, I'm not done, please. I'm not done. I just want to ask, I understand the need to combat the despicable anti-Semitism and so on. I understand what the president is doing. I'm asking you, do you reject the fact that a foreign leader is saying that the demonstrations ought to be cracked down upon? That's what I'm asking you. Do you reject that?
Said.
You reject you reject the U.S. government cracking down on peaceful demonstrators, correct? Correct?
Said.
You reject that? This is part of what America is all about. I'm asking you, do you reject the interference of a foreign leader calling for the crackdown on full American citizens exercising their basic rights, their First Amendment right to demonstrate? That's what I'm asking you.
The Prime Minister was commenting on something happening in this country. I will say over the course of this,
I'm asking you. You are here representing the government of the United States of America. I'm asking you as an officer of this government, of this administration, do you reject the interference of a foreign leader saying that you must crack down on Americans exercising their right to demonstrate? It's a very simple question.
I wouldn't equate that to interfering, Said. It is someone saying something. Ultimately, anybody who has a modicum of basic understanding of how the National Guard and how local law enforcement works, that ultimately, and so we're talking about the National Guard, that is a decision up to individual governments. Just like you all ask me about things that are happening in countries around the world. You ask the secretary, you ask the president about events that are happening in countries around the world. We're seeing leaders from around the world offer their comments on things that are happening in the United States. But when it comes to the actioning on those items, there are procedures in place. Ultimately, these individual campuses can speak to what safety protocols that they have in place to ensure that students, faculty, and others are kept safe. What I'm saying in a broad sense is that rhetoric that is rooted in anti-Semitism, rhetoric that is rooted in Islamophobia, rhetoric that is rooted in targeting individuals for just who they are, is unacceptable. And we have seen that in some of these demonstrations. There is no doubting that fact either, Said. So now I've taken a couple of questions on this. You've got a bunch of colleagues.
I have more questions, but I have one last comment. Don't you feel offended by the fact that a foreign leader is trying to fan the flames against Palestinian Americans in this country? That's exactly what he's doing. You don't feel offended by that?
Said, that is not how I would interpret the Prime Minister's comments, and I defer you to his office to offer any clarification on what he said.